What's up, guys? ASM Caber here on Instagram, ASM_Caber, C-A-B-E-R. Also check out my field that I ref at, Airsoft Ministry, all one word, Facebook or Instagram. So here is the plan that I came up with and gave to DOA that helped them to win the 5-on-5 MLA tournament that was in Stockton at CQB City. I will go over the original plan, go over how they implement it, and so kind of what some other teams did, and just sort of some general observations. And let's get into it. So, the important parts for this map. Now, if you've never been to the CQB City map in Stockton, dude, it's so cool. So you have the attacking team spawn, or the bombing team, and the defending team spawn. You have bomb site B, bomb site A. I colored this building because it's important, but you have this green, these two green squares are pallets. So this little guy here, this is a half pallet. These are both half pallet barricades. Window, 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 door, 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 door. Those are all important. Also, not part of this briefing or ranting or whatever, anything like beyond this red line was the right side of the map, but because it wasn't part of the active plan necessarily, it didn't really matter. So with this layout, first of all, if you are attacking and defending, no matter what it is, the defenders almost always start with the position of advantage, because the defenders, all they have to do is defend. If they can run out the clock before you guys can activate your objective or whatever you got to do, arm the bomb or whatever, defenders win. So the defenders start with the advantage. Remember that. That's important to this. So on the attacking team, I gave them a 3-on-2 attack and skirmish concept. The two skirmishers, we'll just call them skirmishers, their objective, their whole purpose for being was to go right side this way. Also of note, before I go into it, there's a bunch of rooms in here. So like the bomb site was room here, and this little thing here, and some rooms in here. Not important, but the whole purpose for the two skirmishers was to run the right side of the map, make a bunch of noise, and make the defending team think that the attack was going to bomb site B. They did this by shooting walls, just shooting randomly, by making a bunch of noise, making a ruckus, making up commands like, I need more middle, I need more right, I need one on me, blah, 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 right? Making chaos and making a distraction. They're using deception and distraction techniques. The attacking team, here, middle guy would be bomber, this would be right side security, left side security. So the bomber can either run to the left or the right, but the key in this is the bomber needs to be your fastest dude. Your fastest guy on your team needs to be the bomber, because his whole objective, and everyone's objective, is to run in a dead sprint, so that either to the left or the right, but the bomber needs to be here on this window. His right side security guy needs to be here to his right. His left side security guy needs to end up here onto his left and suck. Both your security guys need to be back behind this corner so they're not broadcasting their muzzle and giving their position away. So your right side security guy is their whole purpose for being is to protect the bomber while the bomber arms the bomb. So you're protecting from the immediate, from the mid, and then from anyone who might try and pop their head out from this doorway here. So this whole sector of fire. This player onto the bomber's left, kind of into this, sort of. It's kind of hard to do, because so the way that this doorway works is this part isn't the doorway, but the doorway comes out here. So really you're facing that window, but you could still button hook. So there's that to worry about also. So the whole objective, get rid of all this cool stuff. So before we go into that, the lanes you need to worry about for this is everything around the objective bomb site. So this lane, this lane, this lane, this lane, and not necessarily this lane, but it is something to be a concern. But really, this is where all your attacks are going to be coming from. The whole team can be on this side. It doesn't really matter unless they're trying to engage through this window. So there is that to consider, but not a lot of guys were doing that. So at some point, once the bomber starts initiating the bomb, and once he's close to completion, one of these security elements, one of these security guys, whoever runs fastest or whatever, needs to run and end up in this building. And then behind this, the other guy needs to be behind this little pallet structure. So these two green pallets, they're the pallet barricades, they're like half structures, so they're not full body. So they're like they're about waist high, maybe a little bit higher, maybe about like belly high. But you have to be in the kneeling. You really can't be standing up behind these things, because otherwise you're going to get shot. So his whole objective, or hers, this player's whole objective in life is to keep this player safe. So their whole sector of fire, so they're stationary, they're static, but they're worried about everything over here. So everything from here out, they're worried about. Because if he's not, and he's not paying attention, say these two guys over, the two skirmishers get eliminated, a defender can just run a wide flank and pop this guy in this building, and he's one of the most important dudes. I'll go over that in a second. Get rid of some of these lines. Okay. So you have security, or excuse me, like a attacker or whatever, security, and then the bomber. Now, two disclaimers I will talk about that they had issues with. One, the bomb itself, with being able to program it. So if you were wearing gloves, the buttons weren't going to read your fingertips, depending on what kind of gloves you're reading. Or even if you had bare hands, even sometimes it's just you're pushing it and it's just, look, the screen didn't react. I didn't see any instances where that cost someone like a match or a round. That I didn't see. I was in the spectator area up in this 2-story, and I'll kind of go over this in a second. So that didn't really come into play that I saw. The other issue was where you can initiate the bomb activation sequence from. Now, if you are a competitor, it doesn't really matter in casual play. If you're a competitor in a tournament and the objective of this competition or this tournament is to win, you need to have a very specific understanding of the technical aspects of the rules. So you need to come up with a plan for your whole team, and you need to make sure with a match director, the guy that's running the tournament, that your plan is okay. Don't ask a ref. No ref is going to give you the same answer usually. Same answer. So you go to the match director. You go to the guy that tells the refs what the rules are. This guy who's in charge of these guys. Don't go to these guys, go to this guy. You go to this guy and say, hey, I have this specific question. If this guy says it's cool, what these guys say doesn't matter because he's in charge. So what they were doing was they would plant the bomb on the they would place the bomb on the windowsill here. And then they would start the activation sequence. And then from there, the bomber would then place an activated bomb right about in here into this middle sequence, or into the middle of that building. I'll go over why that's important in a second. From here, your bomber could either go and enter through this doorway. That's not gray. They could either enter through this way. There we are. Through this doorway and button hook in, or they could just run direct. But one of the plans was, so in this 2-story building, before I go into this, the second story was out of play. It was for spectators and observers. It's like the stands, basically. The bottom floor, the first floor, was in play, but it was in pitch black. There's no light in the bottom, in the first floor of this building, in the dark room. The only lighting was the ambient lighting coming through these doorways. And there's also this little bloop. There's also like a little, kind of like a partition in here, so it really looks a little bit more like that. Over here you kind of have the stairs and this little this center fed area. So, but a player would end up here into this corner. If you're quiet and you're a very good ninja, you can hear anyone from the defending team coming in through here. You can hear their footsteps, you can hear their gear if they're not using, good gear rules or whatever. So what you would end up with is a player here, and a player here. And the angles, this is the important part, is they have the angle through this window, which goes through this window and through this window. And then they also have the angle through the doorway. So depending on the placement of the bomb, what you really end up with is kind of this little triangle in here. that the bomb's in the middle of it. In that triangle, you get intersecting lanes of fire through the doors and the windows of the outside buildings. That was the plan. Now remember, if you're the defending team, you start with the advantage. You need to stall for time as much as possible. But as soon as the bombing team arms and activates the bomb, the defending team loses the advantage because now they're sort of on the defense, meaning they have to go out and they're on the attack is what I'm saying. They have to go in, disarm the bomb. First they have to find the bomb, disarm the bomb. That's what they have to do. So, and there was also I was hearing different things. Some say you could hop through windows. Some say you couldn't. Look, the windows weren't that big anyway. Not like it was going to matter. If someone wanted to be froggy and try and hop through a window, cool. There weren't that many windows to go through anyway. And those windows and this doorway was covered anyway. So that was the plan. Delete. What DOA ended up doing is everything right. They got everything in here. They had their skirmishers set. So what they ended up doing was they would rush this building right off the bat and send the bomber solo straight up the middle. Or excuse me, that's not what they secured this. They had one guy here covering long and the bomber. So you had 1, 2, 3, still good coverage. The important part is this window got secured. And this player, the bomber, was playing off of his back. So as soon as he armed it, he stayed put and he just covered here. And then he would also sort of turn around here. So he'd stay on his back in the prone position and he had a pistol. And that worked out very well for him. And that's what won it for him. Another team that I saw something similar. So instead of setting up at this window, they'd set up here on the doorway, and the bomber was in the middle. The problem with this is a defender poked his head out from this middle building, and one of these guys chased him down. So that security element left his post. That's a big no-no, and I can't remember how that was. I don't remember how that match ended, but I do remember seeing that because it stuck out in my mind. What a lot of teams were doing in this tournament that I saw was they were playing it like it was deathmatch. So they weren't focused so much on setting the bomb. It was just search and destroy. If you play that game as an attacker, you're gonna lose if you don't plant the bomb. If time runs out and there's still a defender alive, bro, you lost. Your objective as the bombing team is to set the bomb. So as we talked about earlier, once that bomb is set, you let the defenders fall into your ambush. So once they had this and the bomb was set, it's an ambush because you're already set for what you're gonna do. Everyone did great though. It was a great tournament. One thing I noticed that only 1 or 2 teams did was only a handful of them would actually come up to the spectator area, study the field, kind of study the field layout, study what other teams were doing and stuff like that, and plan from there. Not a lot of teams were doing that. They'd play, they'd pull off, they'd reload, and they'd hang out and drink a dozen C4s and all that stuff. But what not a lot of them were doing is not a lot of them were coming out and spectating and then going, hey man, look what that team's doing. So this team's trying this strategy. Look at how they initiate their attack. Let's do this and so on and so forth. Now, you're asking, what about bomb site B? Bomb site B was a terrible idea because bomb site B is closer to the defending team than the attacking team. So for that reason, I told DOA to stay away from B because this was a little bit more neutral. So it really just came down to who was going to get there first. And a lot of teams, when they would leave, when they would, like, off the break, basically, they would walk or jog or trot. But what they weren't doing is rushing to establish a dominant position. The first thing you have to do in any fight is establish a dominant position. And a lot of teams failed to do that, and that's why they didn't win. Some of them got slaughtered. Some of it was Ops was doing high-level stuff. Tipman A, high-level stuff. A lot of those guys were doing real great. A lot of teams needed to use communication a lot more. Even DOA was guilty of that. They needed to use communication a little bit more and calling for medic or calling like how many players have been down, things like that. But it all worked out in the end, yay, because that plan worked very well. So if you are curious about anything, I think this is the point where I'm supposed to do this and say leave a comment down below, like or subscribe, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. Don't subscribe. Who do I care? I'm 34. You think I care about YouTube subscribers? Get out of here. If you have questions about anything, if you want to DM me at Instagram on ASM_Caber, CABER, if you want me to review footage, if you want me to break down a plan, if you want any help getting better, if you want coaching, anything, hit me up. I don't have a job. I now go to community college full-time. I live off the GI Bill and my VA disability, so I don't have, a lot of stuff to do. So, that's it. I love you. Bye. Love you.